Yet another one of Bitcoin's long-term metrics is showing that Bitcoin is indeed in a value area. And I want to be linking up that idea, those charts, with a few other charts we've been looking at on this channel throughout the last couple weeks here that do pull in a more holistic visual of, what we're probably looking at in the more short term or near term. Anyways, without further ado, we can just jump right into this one. Welcome back to the Krown Crypto channel, blah, 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 blah. You already know. What do all these red vertical bars have in common throughout Bitcoin's 8-year history here, as we can see? Well, these are all important, very important major lows. Now, while not all of them are like the low before Bitcoin never went below them ever again, they did at minimum produce some pretty impressive percentage-wise bounces, even throughout the last bear market of 2022. Now, we can see that these ones did precede a 40% bounce, a 41% bounce yet again, and well, and this one over here, which was essentially a march to new all-time highs, which was a more than 100% move. Anyways, other than that, they were phenomenally important areas. Oh, and I did forget one over here in 2018. This one also did produce a 90% bounce. Again, was not like the low before never going lower ever again, but very, very tradable nonetheless. All of them are running off of the same metric, which is actually firing off a signal as of right now. Now, that signal is, as we'll get into it in a second, it's a bit more nuanced, and that doesn't necessarily mean that Bitcoin is going to turn around exactly right here, but it is in the value area. So I want to bring you back on over to Charles Caparoli's work, actually, and this is the dynamic range NVT. So this is another fundamental based indicator, and again, most of the time I really don't like looking at shit like this, but he's put together, a few of the fundamental things that I think actually matter. I mean, just historically speaking, they do matter. I want to really differentiate this sort of shit with the other on-chain shit, because I think it's just, I think most of it's just honestly fucking garbage. Like it clearly does not work from, in the way that most people are looking at it. But in this way, it's hard to argue with results. So what we're looking at right here, again, is a dynamic range MVT. What essentially is it? Essentially Bitcoin's PE ratio. It is the ratio of on-chain transactions to market cap. The use of dynamic range bands here helps to identify regions of under and overvaluation. Blah blah blah. You already get the idea. All right. In this case, you can see that the green area, or the green line here, is the bottom end of that value area, meaning that under it would theoretically be undervalued. Yes, undervalued. It's like, is it overvalued? No, undervalued. Yes. And so you can see that Bitcoin, as of right now, is already having reads below that green line. Now, I do want to say that just because it's below that green line doesn't mean that it immediately is gonna signal that this is like the low. Obviously, that was not exactly true. One of the second to last time we saw this one where it did dip below that region and then dipped even more. And realistically, it is not indicative of putting in a low or really confirming that as a low until we see it actually trade back above the green line. So it's got some work to do here. But in general, anytime that it has dipped below this region, it's been in a long-term value region. So yes, it's actually already firing off as of right now and has been in that region essentially since April started. So that is when this corrective phase did begin, of course. And well, if we see that head back above the green line, I would say yet another thing that does suggest that Bitcoin is putting in a low above $60,000. This is going to be, of course, incorporated in collusion with our other chart over here, the Bitcoin production cost chart, which we've looked at many a time. I do want to say that the electrical cost, which is essentially the basement price for Bitcoin, has now moved up to $70,000. And again, if you're not familiar with this, basically anytime that Bitcoin has played out significantly nasty downside dumps, downside moves, it has at worst just barely pierced through that region for a very short amount of time. As you can see over here, happened for a fraction of a second, not a fraction of a second, but a couple days during the March 2020 Rona dump. And then the last time before that was the last halving, and the halving before that actually as well. And you can see that Bitcoin is essentially obviously below that region as of right now. So that would imply that Bitcoin is at a value region. So in this case, I would say, putting two and two together, that's long term, this area probably a good region. But in the short term, the real question is, does Bitcoin try an actual downside move that is currently lower than our Friday the 19th of April lows? And that remains to be seen. Now, I would say that the way that Bitcoin's kind of shaping up in the more near term, it very well could be confirmed very, very soon that Bitcoin is, putting in the higher low right here, but that will only be confirmed at minimum with Bitcoin coming back up above the highs that we did see in mid-April, which is essentially $67,000 on a closing basis. If you see that, I'd say there's really no more questions. You have your your higher low in right here, and it's time to talk about 70,000 plus again. And at that point, you have to be going back to this chart, and well, $70,000 probably becomes the next basement price for Bitcoin. So it's really kind of a delicate situation here, because it's like, how cute do you want to get with waiting for this next low? I do think more aggressive people are probably already looking at it as such. Now, the only way that I really say that Bitcoin comes down significantly more than what it's currently operating at is if you do see daily closures below about $61,000. If you see something like that, okay, probably Bitcoin does come down to lowish $50,000. But until that happens, it does seem that the more time that Bitcoin puts in within this region without really breaking down is formulating that next higher low. If we go over here to our HPDR indicators, we can see that the weekly, which is closing today, does show the 38.2 level at 64,800. Which I believe is the high of the day thus far. Let me see. No, actually 64,350 is the high of the day. But if Bitcoin were to close back above there, I'd say that'd be the next sort of short-term step that would be indicative that Bitcoin is putting in this low right here, but it's not fully confirming of that fact. Again, full confirmation of that fact would be back above the 22nd or 23rd of April high, which is about $67,000 on a closing base. See that? No more questions asked as far as I'm concerned. You're going to see 70,000 next, and probably Bitcoin just continues upwards and onwards from there. You see this cycle continue, probably to make new highs in May, if that were to happen, and continue to make new highs probably until the end of the year. At that point, I would say that this cycle likely ends before end of year. Maybe it's like just a month or two after 2025 begins, but it would be a much shorter cycle than what I think a lot of people are anticipating. I think a lot of people are anticipating the highs are going to be in 2025. I think that if we do see this next higher low coming in within this region, as we just looked at right here, then you're probably going to see the highs put in before 2025 ends. So yeah, if Bitcoin does again let go of this low, which I think is starting to become less and less likely. Again, don't fucking kill me if that doesn't happen. I just think it's less likely as of this point, based off of the price action from the last couple of days, but not fully confirmed. Then I think that we're looking at a multi-month correction, probably correction throughout the majority, if not all, of summer. And then you do see this cycle go into 2025, like deeper into 2025, and the highs get put in, maybe summer of 2025 or very late in 2025. For what it's worth, I think that's a little bit less likely as of right now. And that would be significantly reduced. Yes, that idea would be significantly reduced if you saw Bitcoin, especially close today above 64,800. Anyways, going down to the daily over here, what are the next important numbers? Yeah, I don't even have anything to add on top of that, actually. That would be the number for today's specific closure. And then again, back above mid-April highs at $67,000. Yeah, I'd be very confident of this happening, with Bitcoin continuing basically from here, probably making new highs in May, probably making new highs throughout the rest of the year, and you see like a pretty explosive summer as well. And then cycle's over probably before 2025 begins. Catches a lot of people off guard. Anyways, moving on from there, stochastic momentum weekly is going to continue to be remaining to the downside as long as Bitcoin's below $68,000. I'm curious to see what this one comes in on the Monday open. This should come down significantly. If it does come down significantly, maybe like 65 or $66,000. Again, I think that that's going to massively increase the chance that you do see Bitcoin continue to the upside in the more near term. 5-day time frame, nose diving below 70,500, so maybe a little bit against that. What we just spoke about. 2-day time frame remains up above 63,000 bucks, and daily time frame will actually turn down below 64,200. So it all really kind of depends on where things do close tonight. Don't really trust these numbers, or don't really look at these numbers as like super actionable like today or tomorrow, probably more so for this upcoming week. And the first most important thing is going to be today. Does Bitcoin close above or below about 64,800? If you see it above, okay. That's the next puzzle piece for Bitcoin, putting it in the next higher low within this region. And then again, fully confirmed back above 67,000 bucks. That's what it would likely look like if Bitcoin is indeed going to put in the next higher low right here. And you see these charts essentially, confirm the next, the next sort of value area as done and dusted, and it's time to be looking higher. Until that happens, there is still risk to the downside. Again, I wouldn't necessarily say that risk to the downside is going to be capitalized on, as long as Bitcoin's especially above about 61,000 bucks below there on a closing basis. Okay. Get ready probably for 53 or 55,000 bucks, and we'll come back to it after that. Anyways, this video's been long enough. I'm gonna go back to playing Manor Lords. Nope, I'm done with that one, although it was pretty damn cool. Back to Dark Souls 3. Really excited about that ship. Also got some other fun stuff in the background that we're working on as well. And yeah, with all of that said, I want to wish you the best. Take care, much love, and see you tomorrow.